An honor and a privilege for me to be here. When Carol phoned me and asked me to speak at your AGM, I accepted right away for two reasons. The first one, your organization is held in high regard in all of the circles I move in, whether it's at the hospital, United Way, Success by Six, Shepherds of Good. Everywhere I go, they know who you are, and they know the work that you do. I know the work that you do. In fact, we're neighbors. I have a cottage on Big Crosby Lake, right across from your lake, so I'll have to come visit this summer, I think. But anyway, your theme is stories, and it talks on the front here about stories of great leaps forward. And I want to take that theme. That's the second reason I wanted to speak tonight, was because I love stories. I think there's two great powers in the universe. The first one's love. Okay, number one. And the second one is the power of a good story. So I want you to imagine you're not sitting in a stuffy boardroom here, but we're at the campfire. And you all know about campfires, don't you? If anybody knows about campfires, it's you guys, all right? We're at the campfire and I'm going to tell you some stories. And I'm going to tell you about a man I truly respect that I've never met. And then I'm going to tell you about me. I'm not an authority on anything except one thing. I am the world authority on my life. I know more about my life than anybody in the room, okay? So smile, that was a joke, okay? Wake up. Anyway, I want to tell you about a man called Charles Plumb. Charles Plumb was 23 years old, and he was a fighter pilot during the Vietnam War. And he flew off the USS Kitty Hawk, a big aircraft carrier, and 75 missions he flew over Vietnam successfully. And on the 76th mission, as he was flying, he was shot down. And he parachuted out of the airplane, and he didn't land safely. He landed in the hands of the enemy, the Viet Cong. And they put him in a prison for over 4 years, a little wee room, by himself. When Saigon fell, he was released and he went back to America. And one day he was sitting in a restaurant with his wife and having lunch, and a stranger came over and he said, "Excuse me, sir, you're Captain Charles Plumb, aren't you?" He said, "Yes, I am." And he looked at this man, didn't recognize him. And the man said, "You don't know me, but I was a sailor on the USS Kitty Hawk. My job every day on a great big long table in the bows of that ship was to lay out your parachute, make sure the silk was all folded properly and not tangled, and all the wires and the ropes were fine, folded up. And I had your picture on the wall, because this was, to some, a boring job. But I knew if I didn't do that right, and you needed that parachute, you would die. I packed your chute every day." And he shook his hand and he said, "I guess it worked, didn't it?" And they laughed about that, and Charles Plumb told them about how he parachuted and what happened. And the man went away and never saw him again. And Charles Plumb got to thinking about that, and he thought about how every day on that ship he was a big ace pilot, Top Gun. And he probably walked past this man every day and didn't even say hello. And this man literally saved his life by packing his chute. And Charles Plumb got to thinking about this. Who else packed his chute? And he thought metaphorically about this. When he was in that prisoner of war camp, who gave him the courage to stick it out? And he thought about his parents, who gave him that courage. And he thought about the spiritual chute that was packed. He thought about his pastor, his priest back home at his church, who gave him the power of prayer and packed his spiritual chute. And he thought about his teachers at school, who packed his mental chute. And I ask you the question tonight, the first of a couple of challenges I'm going to give you, and who packs your chute? And whose chute do you pack? In your life, whether you know it or not, there are people who are responsible for you sitting in that chair tonight. You're the result of the love of thousands. Think about that, back through your family. And people have influenced your life. And you may not be able to come up with a name of somebody right now, but you will. on the walk home or on the bus home, in the car home, or tomorrow, somebody who has influenced your life in a very positive way. I was born in a little village in Scotland, and 500 people lived in that village, and all the men in that village were coal miners. My father was a coal miner, his father was a coal miner, his father was a coal miner. So I had no illusions about what I was going to be when I grew up. When on my 16th birthday, May 20th, I was going to quit school, and I was going to go down the mine. Half a mile straight down in a cage, and then 5 miles out under the North Sea in a little train, and I would dig coal until one or two things happened. One, I'd be killed in that mine, or two, I would die of silicosis of the lung from breathing in coal dust. That was going to be my life. And I went to the little elementary school in the village, and it had two teachers, the headmaster and his wife. And she taught grade 1 to 4, and he taught grade 5 to 8. And I remember when I got into grade 5, I was about 9 years old, and they had a home right beside the school. And he said to me, Jamie, I want you to go to my house, go in the front door, walk down the hall, open the second door on the right, and bring the book that's sitting on my desk. So I thought, great, he's asked me to do something, I'm going into his house. And I went, I opened the door, I walked down the hall, I opened the second door in the right, I walked into the room, I picked up the book, and my life changed forever. Because I looked at the back wall, and it was covered in books from the floor to the ceiling. And I looked at this wall, and there was books from the floor to the ceiling. And I looked at that wall, same thing. And even through the door I had come through, there was books all around it. And I thought, how could one human being have read all those books? And he was a short man, he was only about 5'5". He grew 4 inches in my mind right there. And I picked up the book and I took it back to him and I said, sir, have you read all those books? And he said, way more than that, Jamie, and he grew another 4 inches. And he started lending me books and giving me books. And I had 2 bricks in my bedroom that I shared with my brother and sister, and a shelf, and I started putting the books on it. And then I had 2 shelves, and then I had 3 shelves. And I was the only other human being in that village of 500 people that had a library. I'd heard there was places like this in Glasgow and Edinburgh full of books. I'd never been in one. He gave me the great gift of books. Later on, we had no gymnasium in our school. The phys ed program consisted of this. Put on your coat, we're going for a walk. We'd all put on our coats and he'd walk for miles and we'd all walk behind him. That was the phys ed program. And I remember one day in class he said, Jamie, I want you to learn a poem. I want you to memorize the poem. And I thought, okay, why? And he said, here's the poem. It's by Wordsworth. And it's called The Daffodils. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vale and hill, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. And I thought, this really sucks. Why am I doing this? I'm going down the mine. Why am I learning a poem about daffodils? So one day I memorized the poem, 5 stanzas, and one day he said, get on your coat, we're going for a walk. We all get on our coats. We went out walking. It was February in Scotland, which is spring. And we went round the side of this hillside, and there on the hillside it was covered in daffodils. And I said to him, sir, look, daffodils, just like in the poem. Do you think Wordsworth was here? And being a good teacher, he didn't say, don't be stupid, Wordsworth was dead. He lived in England, he never got here. He said, you think? And he gave me the second great gift of my life, which was the gift of poetry. And the last verse of the poem goes, for oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with gladness fills, and dances with the daffodils. What a gift. Flash forward, I went to high school. In my high school, we didn't have testing every year. We had it every day. And 9A was grade 9, the 30 smartest kids in grade 9. 9B was the next 30 smartest kids, 9C, 9D, 9E, 9F, 9G, okay? I didn't even talk to the kids in 9G, all right? I was in 9A, I was in seat 6, which means I was the 6th smartest kid in grade 9. By the end of the first month, I was the 20th smartest